Good morning, Holy Spirit.
Good morning.
Well, it's wonderful to be with you here today as we begin Catholic Schools Week and to get a chance to share a reflection of my own Catholic education journey. Each step of the way, I've been pleasantly surprised about how wrong I've been about my assumptions. I went to public schools and was a CCD kid. My only experience with Catholic schools was going to St. Francis football games where my cousin played. It always seemed that there was something special in their community that I actually didn't find at my own school, Fremont High School in Sunnyvale. In my senior year at UC Davis, I was convinced that I would become a lawyer, perhaps a public defender. This is where I felt called. But I was a little weary of school, and I thought maybe 1 year of teacher ed would be a better in-between step than 3 years of law school. My plan, get a credential, teach for a year, then law school. I had a plan. While student teaching junior high school in Dixon, California, I was offered a full-time teaching position. It was a good feeling to be thought ready for this profession, and it would be a comfortable start to a career. But still, I had this voice inside of me telling me that this may not be the right path. I wasn't sure what to do, so I asked God for his guidance. I went to my dorm room that night. I opened my Bible to a random page, and I found myself reading the book of James, where it said, "Faith without deeds is dead." Then, a few weeks before finishing my teaching credential, I was at the Newman Center for Mass. A guest speaker talked about the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. She spoke of Montana, Oregon, Idaho, Washington, and Alaska. And she said, those who wanted a real adventure should go to Alaska. I signed up that day. Somewhere there. Those of us going to Alaska were told to prepare for a long and cold winter, which stretched most of the academic year, and to bring boxes of books to read because there really wasn't anything to do. After a week of orientation at Gonzaga University, 20 of us were off to St. Mary's, Alaska. The mission was staffed by Jesuit priests and brothers and Ursuline sisters and us 20 JVs. St. Mary's is an Eskimo village of about 500 people, a nomadic people surviving as fishermen who were now settled into small villages along the banks of the Andrieski River, which is a tributary to the Yukon. As fishermen, they paid their tuition a little differently than we do here at Holy Spirit. They paid in, what do you think? Fish. Specifically salmon. So you know what that means. We had baked salmon, steamed salmon, salmon stew, salmon salad, salmon creole, salmon jumbo, and at the end of every week, salmon surprise. What a culture shock, living on the tundra, serving as a dormitory prefect, and teaching Alaskan studies to Yupik Eskimos, some of whom were my age, 22 at the time. What did I expect about the climate? Well, I had lived in the equator for a few years as a kid, but mostly grew up in the Bay Area. I was concerned. So I went to an old Ursuline nun, a German who had been in Alaska since 1934, Sister Scholastica. I said, "Sister, I'm worried about surviving such a cold environment. What should I do?" In her kind and gentle German accent, she said, "Go to your room, now. Open your window this much." And I said, "And then what, sister?" She answered, "That's it. Every day it will get a little colder, and you will hardly notice the difference. Then you're living through the winter. A little bit at a time is best in most cases." What else did I assume? I thought the students would be the same as those here in Northern California. You know, raise their hands, answer questions, and talk while I was talking. I learned early on that Eskimos seek consensus, rarely speak in public settings, and raise their eyebrows was a way that they would acknowledge of what you had said. After getting upset as a first-year teacher that they didn't answer me, I figured out that eyebrow raising was preferable to kids talking in class all the time. So what about other assumptions being in Alaska? Eskimos, igloos, hello, those go hand in hand, don't they? I asked the students one day if they knew how to build an igloo. All of their eyebrows went up. I said, okay, since I didn't have a lesson plan, tomorrow we'll build our own classroom igloo where it's 40 below outside with wind chill. The next day we found ourselves huddled together outside the mission and no one was raising their eyebrows. No idea how to build an igloo. I learned later most of them lived in FHA housing in the village. Luckily, I'd read one of my boxed books the night before about how to build an igloo. We put together a structure that was big enough for the 12 of us to have class in. It was fun because we did it together. Interestingly enough, inside it was about 32 degrees, which was 60 or 70 degrees warmer than outside, so it seemed toasty. By the way, my dorm room at that time, by this time of the year, was so cold due to Scholastica's advice that even the Eskimo kids wouldn't come in there. So, loneliness. Some of you may recognize the second person behind the driver in this snow machine. That's a girl, another volunteer named Nadine Montoya at the time. That's an old, different story, but I'm telling you that the box of books that I shipped up to Alaska after I met Nadine stayed boxed, and they're still sitting up there on the Yukon someplace. The $15 a month that I earned by working in Alaska was well worth it for love on the tundra. That's my wife, Nadine, right back there. Thanks for doing that. So from Jesuits and Ursulines, I found myself coming back to the lower 48. I taught in a Dominican school in Los Altos for 3 years, and then over to Archbishop Mitty High School in San Jose. Great faith communities, too many stories to share with you today because of the parking situation and all that. So Holy Spirit, what about Holy Spirit? Well, I've returned to school where my wife and I were parents of 2 students. My daughter's back here today, Marissa, somewhere. Oh, she sort of raised her hand. Served. Thanks again. I look good when you do that. Thanks. So serving as a parent, a school board member, parish council, like many of you have done over the years, it's just nice to be back. What assumptions will I face at Holy Spirit in this job? Well, there are many already, but a more pressing encounter comes to mind at this juncture. Before Christmas, I was having a very deep conversation with 2 kindergartners. One said to me, "Mr. Maher, do you own the school?" I answered, "Yes, I paid $7.50 for it." His friend immediately jumped in and said to the first boy, "He's kidding. He doesn't own the school. It belongs to the church." Out of the mouths of babes. In encounters with many of you in this community, this very topic comes up. We all have assumptions about the school. Whose school is this? Most of you are aware that 5 schools in our diocese are scheduled to close at the end of this year. All of the local principals, along with Mrs. Chu, attended a very emotional meeting a Friday before last at Our Lady of Rosary. After several hours, it was clear that maybe the question of who owns the school is not so clear. The families who lost their school are no different than the families here at Holy Spirit. They all want a Catholic education for their kids, and so does the parish as a whole. The question so profoundly asked and answered by the Kinders is a reminder of how we as parishioners at Holy Spirit view this question. It's our school. How we support the school is up to all of us. The collective support of all of the 5,000 families here is what makes this parish school viable. The testimony of that is clear when you look around at every one of the masses and you see second and third generation people where the kids have gone here and just keep coming back. It's amazing. I don't even need to see raised eyebrows to know that. So with our amazing staff leading the way, we'll continue doing this good work for the parish and your children and grandchildren. With our wonderful school board, we'll be reaching out to you in specific ways in the coming weeks and months in how you can assist in fulfilling the mission so that Catholic education is made available for everyone, regardless of financial capability. I know what Scholastica would say at this point. Go home. Open your checkbook this much. I'm just kidding. Each month, you will hardly notice the difference, but you will be prepared for the wind chill of tough times. You know, in doing so, the 200 families, many of whom are here, whose kids go to the school now, they will not carry the full burden, and the 500 will help all of us survive for winters and springs to come. So I just have one more question for you. Whose school is this?
Our school.
Thank you. One more time. Whose school is this?
Ours.
God bless Holy Spirit School and Holy Spirit Parish. Thank you so much.